single journey, and hopefully it's always driving engagement, loyalty, and cultural relevance. So I'm very proud to have the panel now on stage with our moderator, Maliha Shoaib, senior reporter at Vogue Business.
Great. Thank you so much for the introduction, Anne. That was great. So yeah, we're here to talk about shopping, or more specifically, retail strategy. What's interesting is that, these themes of community, of creativity that have been brought up over the course of the day, this is actually an area where perhaps we're lacking a bit of that. So as many of you might know, the retail market is really struggling right now. So if you're following the story about Saks in the US department stores are really suffering. And then online, multi-brand stores are also suffering. Essence, for instance, Matches, Farfetch, a number of those were really struggling. And then even brands themselves are really kind of finding it hard to sell to customers as expectations have shifted and wallets are tighter. Now, part of that is out of their control, of course, tariffs, economic uncertainties, but there's a lot that is in their control, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves and we can jump into it.
Thanks, Maliha. Hi, everyone. I'm Metcalfe from eBay, Fashion Category Director for Germany.
I'm Roel de Cooman, VP Global Sales at haebmau.ATELIER, Belgian nationality.
Hi, I'm Carsten Hendrich, Chief Brand Officer at Breuninger, and within retail for 20 years also. People might not know Breuninger, you probably know Zalando and KaDeWe, so this is also like former stations. I'm happy to be here.
Brilliant, thanks guys. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Carsten, I want to start with you first. What do you think has changed most in terms of what customers expect and want from physical retail? And what hasn't caught up on the retail side? Like, why do we have this gap?
Well, I think in general, you need to have different perspective now on retail, and especially on physical retail, because it goes far beyond the transaction and the sale. And when I look at it, I see it more as a touch point within the customer journey. And I think this is something, when you look at it this way, you also see that the role of retail and physical retail is different, because it's more about experience. It's more about almost like a cultural and social engagement. And this is also where people are longing for, especially when you have so many opportunities in the digital space, like the physical interaction becomes more valuable. That doesn't mean that you necessarily need to buy physical, but there is the customer journey goes across touch points. And so you need to look at it differently and actually provide value on those different touch points. The biggest challenge I see currently is that it's hard to attribute the value of physical retail, because usually you think in margins, you think in profit, and this is always short term, but at the end, it's about building a relationship, and here physical retail can really add value to it, and this is also what we're seeing. It's not about separation of channels, it's really seeing it as touch points and integrating it in a customer journey. So events are the most successful activations, I would say. And one example is when you look at beauty and perfume, you see, how especially young people come to the stores because they want to try out, they want to try the smell, they want to engage also socially, and even if they buy online later. So it's something that you hardly can't really differentiate.
Mm-hmm. And Roel, what about you? What are you seeing and what feels outdated to you? Especially, I know that you have thoughts on the power balance between customers and retailers kind of shifting.
Yeah, I'm talking from a wholesale perspective, selling to stores like Breuninger. So I think what changed from the past is that in the future we looked as having an overall community of stores. I think today what we do is we look at the end consumer, which store talks to which end consumer, and build our distribution strategy on that to really see that our wholesale partner becomes a partner to communicate with the end consumer. And also when we talk about marketing strategies, because that's what we are also quite involved with, we have brand marketing who tells the story of the overall brand, but then of course we also have account marketing, and then we select our accounts like Breuninger to work with, to especially talk locally to the consumer, as brand marketing is a global communication tool. But I think account marketing and working with the accounts gives us the ability to really work locally. And I think today that is very important, that next to a global strategy, you also talk local to your community.
Right, it has to feel more specific, I suppose. Yeah,
More
especially in a world.
intense, more close, more specific. As brand marketing is an overall, you have to please the whole consumer base, but if you go locally, you can really go much deeper and then play with who you really want to talk to.
And Keith, at eBay, from a marketplace perspective, how are you seeing customer discovery kind of shift and change?
I think it's customers' expectations have changed, and a lot of the time that's underpinned by how technology has driven that change. So if you think the traditional model would be you go onto a website or a marketplace, you start to have a look around a search bar and see what you're giving signals that way. Now the expectation is that platforms like ours know the customer. We have certain information that you've given to us over time, whether that's through your searching, your shopping, and therefore we should know what your tastes are, maybe what your size is, what your age of your family that you might be purchasing is for. So that's changed things. And I think people are now expecting more immersive experiences online as well. So obviously the rise of various other visual platforms outside of retail that experience has come into retail and marketplaces in a big way. And now it's moving from visual to more video formats as well, like live shopping. So it's an ever-changing journey around what customer expectation is for discovery.
Yeah, so my colleague at Vogue Business did a report, it's called Gen Z Broke the Marketing Funnel. And it looked at how, particularly for younger generations, there's so much that goes into a purchase before they've even clicked onto a website or entered the store. Often there's a much more intense research period. There's talking in comment sections with friends, looking on Pinterest, looking at TikToks, messaging people to find out. It's really, there's so much that goes into it that's actually... really before you even get to the retailer. So I guess that's where your point about marketing comes in. Yeah. Okay, so if we connect these dots here, if we know now that retail is about specificity, that we need to connect these experiences, it's not about having an isolated experience. Let's talk about what drives engagement today. So Keith, where do you see the biggest opportunities for digital innovation today? I know you mentioned live shopping already, but how do you balance digital innovation with still maintaining trust?
Yeah, for me, they go hand in hand. The innovation actually really drives the trust in terms of two big topics that we're investing, but are just major trends as well. So to go a little bit deeper on live shopping, which is something for eBay Germany, we're literally just launching. It's like less than 6 months old here and growing really fast. This is a brand new platform that sellers, brands, retailers of all sizes can get creative on, and it's tangible and it's new, and that brings with it the challenge of it being new and finding the right format, investing in experimentation about how to use it, but also the huge rewards from being an early adopter of this technology. So and we're seeing it manifest in different ways in Germany to how it's taken off in the US, for instance, like different category mixes, different types of products selling really well. So that for me is like, this is innovation. It's happening live. No one in this room has missed the boat. I can guarantee you that. That's a huge opportunity. How does trust play into that? Actually, things like live shopping, you can see the person who is the seller selling the item to you. And it's a person, it's not a listing and lots of text. So that really is driving trust. We had a watch sell for 38,000 euros on a live event in Germany last week. I didn't think we'd be at that price point this quickly, if I'm absolutely honest. We've seen $100,000 watches sell in the US last year, but I was like, it will be a while before we see even a €10,000 euro watch in Germany. So the trust is there. And then the other innovations in especially authenticity technology are really backing that up. And the two things go hand in hand. So at eBay, we've been rolling out category after category for our authenticity guarantee program, or Echtheitsprüfung. Apologies for my German. Starting with sneakers and watches when they were like super hype categories on the back of the pandemic. Both of which still maintain huge communities, and then building in handbags and now clothing and jewelry. And so we're taking the gamble out of the consumer's mindset with that type of innovation. And there's other authentication that's happening, like proactively, like we removed almost 6 million prohibited items from eBay across a calendar year. So there's that proactive side of things as well. But all of those are underpinned by various different technologies, whether they're AI, whether it's around just being able to train at scale to our authentication team, or deal with volumes into our warehouse. So yeah, it's for me, the innovation is driving trust rather than vice versa.
And I also want to talk about how to tie the digital and the physical. Personally, the word omnichannel makes me want to throw up. I think it's like such a bad word. But in a way, the reason why I dislike it so much is because it feels table stakes at this point. But Carsten, how do you sort of think about marrying the digital and the physical in a way that's a bit more elevated than the sort of old school omnichannel strategy?
Well, I mean, you have the very obvious traditional way how you look at it. It's that you intertwine the channels, and at the end guide the customer to the purchase, and this is something which is actually also creating value for customers, because if you, for example, within our stores, you can, for example, do a click and collect, so you can sit at home, choose what you want, order to the store. You have a changing room right next to it, so it can be very convenient and can also be an experience. However, if I look at it more from a, let's say, consumer marketing perspective, I feel that at the end, to engage with audiences, you need to almost like go from pure brand marketing to cultural marketing, because this is at the end what people are really interested in, what they're engaged in. And so you need to find cultural moments that you tap into, or cultural communities, to create interesting kind of storytelling. And for us, it's, for example, that we always try to blend style with culture in a way, and create like a conversation, be part of culture somehow. And here, physical and digital play very strong together. There's not the one without the other. For example, if we do, a customer event, this could be something when you do pop-up, if you do a launch, if you do collaborations, it's something that you can experience in the physical space. But at the same time, it's the perfect moment to create authentic social-first content, which is then amplifying across digital. And what you see here, and you were talking about the marketing funnel, is that also here there is a shift that we currently see, that very much in the past, e-commerce was driven by lower funnel marketing. But this is getting very expensive now. So we see that you need to really think about how can you bring new people into the funnel, how can you engage them. And this is a different approach that you need to combine brand and performance. The one doesn't work without the other, especially in retail. And I think this is a different way to look at it, that it's not neither nor. And the most successful marketing you can do, if you have something which is like organically successful, and then you actually also like push it out because you see that it's interesting for people, that they engage with it. So this is actually how I look at it, and how we also try to, like, each season tap into a specific field of culture. For this season, it's about food, which I think everyone can relate to. And also food is something which is also in an intersection with also fashion, because it's also something to express yourself. It's something that you engage with. We, for example, do invite tastemakers to be part of a campaign, to share their point of view, and then at the same time also provide the physical experience where we do, for example, also panel talk around that topic. And that at the end is later on amplified through digital and social. And this is how to really provide a relevant profile for your brand.
So I guess to mention another retail buzzword, the experiential element, right, is how you keep people there. It's so much more than just the shopping. It's really,
And it's also not a campaign. You know, it goes far beyond. It's much more experiential, yes.
Yeah. And from your perspective, I'm thinking about this in terms of like brands and how they can maintain that cultural relevance. You obviously work with a lot of brands on sales, distribution. How do you think they can expand their retail in a smart way without kind of compromising on that cultural relevance? What does that look like?
I think that today we are in a big change, and I'm just coming back from Milan and Paris, where we engaged with lots of our partners, and I feel that we are in a change of, and it's mostly driven by consumer behavior. And I think that today or in the past we have dictated very much from a brand level towards what the end consumer needed to do or think about us. And I think today it's more about an engagement between the end consumer and the brand to make that to make the next step. We come from a time where pure players were the most important, powerful institutions out there. Then we came to click and mortar, because in the end we realized that the consumer needed to connect somehow with the physical location to culturally be connected to the brand or to the store. And I think today the brick and mortar becomes again much more important. And I think there we see that the independent is coming out. I see there was in the UK a very big monopoly going on by Fraser's Group that bought all the independent stores, and there was no relevant cultural landscape anymore. And today we have again in London a few stores popping up which are independent stores, and it's an amazing sign out there that gives us hope for the industry, I think. So
So do you think it's just like these big stores are doomed? I don't know.
No, we all need to, but I mean, it's not that they are doomed, but there was no balance anymore. And I think it's all about balance. I mean, a consumer decided in the end where he goes to and where he connects best with. I might be someone that goes to a little store which has brands that nobody's heard about and I want to discover. Other want to be guided. But if there is only one kind of landscape, we lose the diversity in our consumer base. And I think that is something that I had I felt the sprinkles in Paris this season again, and it gave me hope for this diverse universe that there always has been, and I think it's important that we keep it.
Yeah, one takeaway that I've had being here in Berlin and chatting to the brands, you guys were here for William Van's talk with Edward, yeah. So I went to William's store just a couple of days ago, and I think something he's done really well is create a business model where essentially he's not so dictated by the way that you're supposed to run a brand. He's got direct-to-consumer online, and then he has his little in-person store where he's there every day, he's talking to the clients, and he's kind of created this retail model that actually just works for him and what his customer wants. And I think, I guess in tougher economic times, maybe that is the lesson, is that it's less about one flattened strategy or one flattened approach and more about customizing it for different brands and their customers. But do you think, I guess, what's your advice for an independent brand in terms of retail strategy then?
I think when I go back a long time, and we also had our own brand, we were always proud about the quantity of stores we were selling to. We sell to 200 stores, and that made us proud because it was about the quantity. And I think today it's more about the quality. It's more about with whom you engage, with who you want to build your community. And I think that is for me the focus where a brand should start to then scale to then have in the end probably the 200 stores. But I think it's building your own community, and that you can only do when you really have a strategy with whom you want to communicate and which stores you want to sell to. And then it's not about the quantity, but just to select these few stores where you want to start with, and then you build up your universe.
Did you have something to add, Carsten? You look like you're thinking.
No, I was just digesting.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no. I mean,
no, but
yeah, one thing I would love to ask you is actually, when you're working with brands, how do you, I guess, maintain their individuality even when being in a big store?
yeah. And also to still control your brand. And I think this is also what you see, especially also in the luxury space. At the end, you know, if your brand is like everywhere available, it gets very, very soon also diluted. And I think this is also why, you know, you need to take back control of your brand to make sure that you have an identity that you protect. And at the end, also, you drive value by doing so. And this is what luxury is about. You know, it's not about being available everywhere, right? So it's about longing and desire. And I think this is something, especially for independent brands, which is important. You know, probably more slow growth, more qualitatively, instead of, you know, the very, let's say, short-term growth.
Brilliant. And I think for the rest of the conversation, I want to turn our faces toward the future and, yeah, talk a little bit about what a good retail strategy looks like going forward. Keith, if I come to you first, what's one piece of advice that you would give brands or retailers to stay commercially and culturally relevant?
Yeah, I think the key topic that combines both cultural and commercial relevance, and probably for the first time now, is leaning into resale. I want to say sustainability, but I've just heard Rose mention the fatigue around that language. And I think that applies to us as an industry as well, because I'm sure we've been to events like this over the years talking about the importance of sustainability. And the good news is, unlike maybe 3 or 4 years ago, whilst all these conversations have been happening, there's been lots of purposeful people out there building solutions to these problems, whether that's for take-back schemes, whether that's for customer returns. And for the first time, it's commercially relevant as well. And we're really confident through what we're seeing with some of our partners. So we had Kirsty, our GM of Europe, with Reskinned. There's also Trove is another amazing resale partner we have. And then there's also the digital product passport partners like Certilogo we have in our universe, as well as the ones Rose mentioned. We've now figured out as an industry economic solutions to some of these issues that means that they're not just a have to do, they're a beneficial to do commercially as well. So my main advice would be to lean into resale. And if you had conversations a year ago, 2 years ago, and you're like, yeah, this is a headache, I don't know what to do here, we'll just hope the problem goes away and worry about it when the legislation happens. Now we're at a moment where there is an opportunity to go and do something that's not just the right thing to do, not just the compliant thing to do, but also is the profitable thing to do. So that would be my number one piece of advice for the industry.
At Vogue Business, when we cover future-proofing the industry, sustainability is a huge part of that, but also tech is as well. Obviously, everyone's talking about AI, so I have to ask, what would your advice be around AI and how brands and retailers and marketplaces can, I guess, innovate with that?
I think I'm definitely not an AI expert, but here's my advice. Be really clear about what the problem is that you're trying to solve with AI and test and see whether or not there is a solution to it. But because there's so many different AI tools out there, and experiment and just get results about whether that's going to help or not. And then it's probably test again in 3 months' time with the same problem because things are moving so fast. So I think it's just be agile and be ready for how these tools are going to develop.
Yeah. Are you guys using AI at all? Like when I speak to brands and retailers, actually some of the most, I guess, useful cases of AI are sort of the back-end stuff like inventory planning or like, you know, like supply chain management, all the stuff that is less sexy. But I'd be curious to hear, yeah, if it's something you guys are looking into.
I think where we can use it is in forecasting, because our supply chains become more critical, and at a certain point we need to go into forecasting either the fabrics or the range before we go into selling, because our lead times become shorter and shorter in producing. So there we see opportunities to use AI. If you would ask me, build your strategy for the next 10 years, maybe I would not use AI.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I mean, it takes what is there, but I think it's still a human being that needs to be the person that has the vision of where we would go to. I can also be wrong and I can be right, and AI can be wrong and can be right. But I think this ability to look into the future is still something that a human being has, and that's where I would not go to define my strategy on AI.
I mean, of course, you need to engage with AI because it's a reality and it's also bringing opportunities, especially when you look at it from an efficiency perspective. However, I think as culture is always about I mean, culture is not digital. The same brands are not digital. So I think technology is a means to an end per se. And if you look at the next 10 years, I think the role of branding will increase, because at the end, it's the only way to differentiate. It's the only way to build connections. And that goes beyond algorithm. It goes beyond, what has been successful in the past. But of course, you need to balance out, because I mean, content production and generation, of course, is also something to look at. And how can you make use of it without, becoming a faceless brand? And so I think, in general, creativity and branding will be the differentiating factors. And if you look at the McKinsey study about the marketing priorities in 26, the first rank is branding. And then follows a lot of, like marketing ROI and also automatization and AI. But at the end, it starts with the brand, because this is the most valuable asset that you can have as a retailer and as a company. And so I think this will be exciting times, because this will change how you do branding. But at the end, it's always about how create emotional relationships with customers to be relevant.
And Roel, you mentioned AI is not the thing you would be investing in if, we're building a retail model for the next 10 years. What would you invest in?
Oh.
Whether it's time, resources, what's worth spending on?
Oh, wow. I wish I would have AI now. No, I think we already touched this, I think, in the previous questions, what I see as the future where we go through, and I think it's more about the focus. I think it's more about, I think we all overdid it a little bit in the past. I mean, look at luxury brands, pricing structures. I think we have a very clever consumer out there, and I think he's guiding us very much in the right direction. So I think it's looking and looking at the person you engage with, and take also absorb these signs and work with them.
Mm-hmm. And Carsten, what strategies do you think will be most effective in the next 5 to 10? I guess we're even talking 10 years.
It's not really, for me, it's not yet a strategy. It's more that you need to really look into, for example, the role of branding and a brand. And I think this is fundamentally changing, because it's not about positioning anymore. It's rather that you need to see brand as an operating system for everything that you do. And I think governance becomes super important. So you have to have a lot of rules. You have to have a lot of, regulations to also make sure how the brand is evolving and to not lose control out of it. And I think this is something that goes far beyond marketing, because like every department is needs to be like capable of providing value, but at the same time do it in a way that it's not diluting the brand. And so I think this is becoming beyond communication and marketing only.
Brilliant. I think that's a good point to end on. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.